5 comics reviewed. Hi, welcome to Garage Geek. So today I'm going to review 5 comics. Now I did this recently in a video and I just want to say 2 things. I was supposed to do quick reviews and I ended up making a 20-minute video for 5 comics. So I don't know how quick those reviews are. So in this issue that I showed off in my last video, which is the Brave and Bold number 54, there was this public service announcement that I thought was pretty interesting. Are you a good neighbor? Now, this was geared toward teens. Now, initially, these kids are playing. They knock over some garbage cans. They don't want to clean it up. One of them wants to, but the others run away. So then they go to a picnic spot, and they're mad because someone left all their garbage everywhere. And they decide, well, we've got to clean this up. And then they realized that what they had done was wrong. And so they go back and they clean up the mess. So you need to ask yourself, are you a good neighbor? Now let's get on to the 5 comics I'm going to review today. And I'm going to, again, go in the order that I read them. So first we have Our Army at War, number 81. Red Sonja, number 10. Young Romance, number 125. Rat City, number 1. And Detective Comics, number 411. So first up, we have Our Army at War, number 81, and this is, I believe, the first appearance of Sergeant Rock and Easy Company. It's a very nice cover. I love the background of it. The first story is called The Rock of Easy Company. It's about a 6-page story that introduces us to Sergeant Rock, and look at his arms. In this story, we have a Nazi captain who is constantly referred to as Iron. If I took a shot for every time they wrote the word iron, I would be drunk on the first page. Every time they mention this man, it's iron this, iron that, right there, like an Iron Capitan. And so Rock is always going to be referred to as Rock, and this guy is Iron, and I guess Iron and Rock are going to battle it out. See, even right there, rain iron on the enemy. It's every single box and panel. It was pretty funny, but also a little bit over the top. Now, Sergeant Rock wants it pointed out that he comes from the working class of America. I want to point this out. Look at the way he's holding that gun there. It's hilarious. And he says, I got this way working in a steel mill. You got to be strong working on hot steel all day long. Maybe it's iron versus steel, but he's constantly referred to as Rock. So as the enemy attacks, they're always referred to as Iron, and you can see these great panels. And then, but of course, Rock is there. Bullets are flying, but he never gets hit. He always puts himself in harm's way to stop the enemy. He does whatever it takes. And by the end, there's a hand-to-hand combat with the leader and Sergeant Rock. This man of steel beats the man of iron. And we are assured that there will be not only more Sergeant Rock in this issue, but also in future issues. Look at this great splash page advertising for a comic, Viking Prince. We have a 1-pager. And then we have the splash page for the next, Fighting Footsteps. Now, isn't that a great splash page? Now, in this one, the man states at the very beginning, I never thought I'd leave my mark anywhere until I had to fight for more than my own life because of my fighting footsteps. So this is all about him leaving a physical trail that the enemy can follow him through the desert. Everywhere he goes, he leaves a trail, and that helps the enemy find him. Even at night, his trail in the desert leads the enemy straight to him. But all's well that ends well. He makes it back to his company. Now, here's another ad for Tootsie Roll, and I just love these so much that I might actually have to read a couple of these to you. Tootsie Roll. There was a weightlifter named Lane, loved Tootsie Rolls while he would train. They gave him great pleasure and strength for good measure, plus brawn, he was using his brain. Oh, look at him. There he is. And then this was really interesting. What's your BQ? And your BQ is your Brotherhood Quotient. In Section A, it asks you to check one column for each item listed to test your likes and dislikes. And they have ugh, dislike, like, so-so, lukewarm, no thought, vacant. The first one is alligators, and the next one is Baptists. Then cabbage, then Catholics, then detective stories, and then foreigners. After that, Indians, Jews, long-haired music, Negroes, and spiders. My jaw was kind of dropping the floor, but they were they were doing it for a good reason, because they were like, if you picked so many people that you didn't like, then they say it at the end, you need to rethink your attitude about life. But it was just so brazen there. And then B, do you believe that all men are created equal? Yes or no? Do you think all young people should have the same chance for education, sports, and jobs? Yes or no? When a new child comes to your neighborhood, do you go out of your way to make him feel at home? Yes or no? It's actually pretty powerful for a comic book of this time, which I forgot to tell you the date that it came out of. It came out in 1959. That's pretty powerful stuff for that time. But the presentation just kind of had me kind of like open-mouthed. I was like, what? Next, we have a 2-pager about an actual company of an army company that were named the Liberators, and this is the 14th Armored Division. And they go through the fact that they were only in the war for a short time, but in that short time, they managed to liberate a lot of people, and they won a bunch of awards, and they even had a patch for them. History. Next, we have a story called Umbrella Pilot. And this is a story of a younger brother who's very jealous of his older brother. His older brother is picked to become a pilot, and he has to be with his older brother and always jump out of the plane. He learns how to defend himself as he's falling with a parachute. I'm calling it an umbrella. And so he learns very quickly how to avoid enemy fire as he's falling through the air and what he should do. What happens is his brother has to jump out of a plane, and he doesn't know how to defend himself. So his younger brother has to defend the older brother as they're both falling through the air. And it was a really nice issue. And there we got that great panel. And now we have another Tootsie Roll. We need an intermission to read our Tootsie Roll poem. There once was an archer named Park, who shot arrows from dawn until dark. At each target he'd aim, my shots, he'd exclaim, like Tootsie Roll Pops hit the mark. I don't know why I get so much fun out of these Tootsie Roll ads. Okay, then we have a letters page. And the letters are interesting because they actually ask some questions that I didn't know the answers to, and they go ahead and explain. For example, what happens when the crew of a submarine is ordered to abandon ship while submerged? And they go through and explain it, and it was really interesting. I think this is the last story. Yeah, so this is another Sergeant Rock story, No Pocket for Easy. And in this, Easy Company is totally surrounded on a map. They get an enemy map after destroying a tank, and they find out on the map that they are completely surrounded, and they're going to have to fight their way out of this ring. And that's exactly what they do. Now, there's one more Tootsie Roll poem, and I gotta read this because it's about space. There once was a rocket ship ace who bought Tootsie Roll fudge by the case. When asked for the reason, he said, "They're so pleasin'. Who wants to run short out in space?" I'm so regretting that I didn't read all of these to you in the other issue. That's forever going to be on a stain on my soul. All right, so there we have our army at war, number 81, the introduction of Sergeant Rock and Easy Company. I thoroughly enjoyed this issue. It was so much fun. Next, I read a modern comic, Red Sonja, and so this is number 10 by Dynamite. And of course, I bought it for that beautiful cover. But am I going to like the interior? So I started reading it, and right off the bat, I thought it was cheesy. And there are some cheesy elements, but this is actually a fun comic. Red Sonja believes a friend of hers has been killed and she wants revenge. So she storms a palace, and when she goes inside, there's an enemy there that I recognize from old Conan comics. And it's this guy. And he's a wizard. Now, I just want to say that I passed this up because look at this beautiful advertisement. Jenny Frison, double page spread for a Vampirella. And so there's a lot of magic and sword play in this. And that's exactly what you'd want from a Conan or a Red Sonja comic. Here's another advertisement for a comic, Red Sonja. I have a little bit of a bone to pick because, like, when you look at this Red Sonja cover and she's standing there holding her sword like this, like, that's just not, I think, how a warrior would stand. It's those kind of covers kind of bother me, but I don't know why, because this is a silly genre to begin with. But let's move on. So she fights the wizard, but it turns out that, oh wait, I'm not going to spoil it. There's a great splash page at the end. Does the story live up to the cover art? I would say it does. This is what you expect. It's swords and sorcery, and if you're into this genre, you're going to like it. It was a quick read. Didn't give me anything new, but it certainly wasn't bad. Did it justify, like, would I want to buy more Red Sonja comics based on this one? No. It's just not my genre. The third comic was Young Romance number 125. And this is a facsimile edition. Sorry. I don't know if I mentioned that our Army at War, of course, was a facsimile edition. Now, this one originally came out in 1963, and I'm going to have to say that this surprised the heck out of me. This was the best of all five. I was not expecting a romance comic to beat out all the other ones. This is the best. It's basically a compilation, and there's going to be 3 or 4 stories in here. Look, when you open up this cover, bam, look at that. I was shocked. That should have been the cover. What a gorgeous piece of art that is. And it's not the same throughout the entire issue. That's by far the best art piece, but the art is not bad. And the writing was actually really good. I was surprised at the quality of writing for a romance comic. Oh, I also forgot to mention that I believe the reason that this is put out in a facsimile is that this was the first DC issue. Numbers 1 through 124 came out by a different company, and then DC took this comic over. This story involves a woman who believes that her boyfriend, who she's about to get married to, is cheating on her, and that he actually has a wife and children. And so she flees her life and goes to live in a small town where she lives in the home of a woman who is in a wheelchair. But she's been warned that this woman is a busybody. She's nosy, and she will get into her affairs. And that's exactly what the woman does. But it doesn't turn out the way that she would expect. In fact, it turns out that this busybody is going to help her, and that whereas initially she was telling the woman to stay out of her business over and over again, by the end she's inviting that woman to come and live with her, and that they're going to take care of her and love her forever, because it was because of her meddling that she found out the truth about her fiance. And I won't spoil it more than that, but it's silly, but it was actually really well written. I'm going to give you an example. She says, "I know Eddie the taxi driver. He probably told you I'm an awful busybody. Yet that didn't scare you away. Is it because you feel pity for me?" So they're sitting here talking on the porch. And the young woman states, "What's wrong with pity, Aunt Jane? We all have some sorrow in our lives, of the heart or body, which can stand a little sympathy. To feel sympathy for others is to be a human being." Quite a philosopher, aren't you? That's pretty advanced for a romance comic, or even any comic in general. I was surprised by the level of writing in this, and it's like that throughout the entire story. Any fool can see you're running away from something you can't face. Take it from an old lady. You'll never put an inch of distance between yourself and your true feelings, even if you go to the ends of the earth. And we get the old woman's, we get Aunt Jane's backstory, and we can understand why she behaves the way she does. All in all, for a 6-page story, this was very well written. That beautiful art piece, I really wish that had been the cover rather than that. So much better. The next story is 3-Week Romance. Now, this woman moves to a town. She's a high school student, I believe. She moves to a town, or maybe they're college students. And she sees her friend crying outside of a dance. I first heard of Ted Minton from the sobbing lips of one of my girlfriends. Sue, for goodness sake, what's the matter? Why are you crying? Sob, for weeks I was so afraid it would happen. Sob, all the girls warned me it would occur. What occurred, Sue? Ted Minton finally walked out on me. Sob, left me flat on the dance floor. He got tired of me, as he does with everyone he dates. Sob. So this is how we're introduced to the woman, to the man that the main character is going to fall in love with. She says to herself, wow, this guy must be really something, because, gosh, Sue is in a horrible state. How attractive can this Ted Minton be that he'd have such a devastating effect on Sue? She's such a balanced, sensible person normally. So when she finally meets him, she's like, you know what? I'm going to date this guy, but I'm going to be smart about it. I know that this is going to have a 3-week threshold, but the guy is so cute, so handsome, so charismatic. But I'm never going to let myself fall so hard. And as soon as I see that he's got eyes for someone else, I'm going to break it off immediately. And that's what she does. However, what we see in this comic is that this woman is pretty cruel. So they're in acting class. Ted is with his former girlfriend, his current girlfriend, but he doesn't want her anymore. And they're acting and they have to kiss in a scene. And because he doesn't want her anymore, she's being blamed. And she's replaced like that by the newcomer. So the director, the teacher, is saying, no, Madge, no, that's not the way it must go. There's no warmth in your kiss. And she says, in my kiss, I'm kissing Ted as hard as I can, but it's he who isn't responding. And the woman is behind the scenes scheming. She's like, this is my chance. And so, irregardless of this young woman's feelings, she swoops in and she kisses him. It's a very passionate kiss, and everyone there understands it. The poor girl who's being replaced, she says, for gosh sakes, how long does she have to kiss him? She's making a career out of it. So this is a romance comic, and it's going to end up well for the main character. So she actually convinces him after she walks away. He's staring at a woman on the beach, and she walks away, and he realizes that he loves her and that she's got to realize that every once in a while he's going to look at another woman. Well, of course. Once that happens, they agree that they are in love with each other, and it ends with, that scene took place many years ago, and may I say that to this very day, there are da-da-da-da. And so they live happily ever after. Now, in the next page, we get this Miss Young America. And we are given a profile of 2 young women, one who is 18 and one who is 16. The language here is pretty gross. Vivacious Vicky is a natural blonde with blue eyes and fair complexion. Her statistics are 35, 25, 35. All this and a good cook too? Who could ask for anything more? Now that's about the 18-year-old. Now, this is what they write about the 16-year-old. Lovely brunette Mary Ann is 5'3", has eyes of brown, and lacking more statistics, we can only say we'll gladly settle for what we have. What I did like about this, it says, each of the girls will receive the original sketch 8x10 drawn by the noted illustrator John Romita. Wow, that's pretty cool. The next story, False-Hearted Love, is really crazy. We have this kind of half splash page that's going to tell us what's going to happen later. This young girl falls in love with a guy who is a lifeguard, but she's afraid to bring him home to her sister, but she's so madly in love with him. And she's telling her boyfriend the whole time, and the sister's totally fine with it until they decide that they're going to get married. And then the sister's like, no, this guy is okay for dating, but he's not okay for marriage. And the sister had been hurt 2 times in the past, and she's telling the younger sister, I know what I'm talking about. What the man does is he supposedly falls in love with the older sister. The younger sister sees that the older sister is being a hypocrite. Once the younger sister sees that he was just acting to get the older sister to fall in love with him so that they could prove what a hypocrite she was, she says she'll marry him gladly. They just toyed with this older sister and just tossed her away, doesn't care. And the younger sister and this is the older sister who took care of her after their parents died. They're just like, whatever, we don't care about you. Now we're getting married. Yay, we're happy. It really left a bad taste in my mouth. Then there are some letters, and the letters are pretty funny because they're for young people. In the first one, there's a 15-year-old girl who's in love with 2 different boys. And so she's asking for advice about what to do. In the next one, she's been going steady with a boy for a long time, but a new boy comes in to her French class. And so she's asking advice about what to do. The next one, I'm only 12, but I think I'm in love with a boy who's 13. How precious. And it goes on and on. The letters are worth reading, worth buying this comic just for the letters. The last one was the weakest, and it's His Brother's Love, in which we get the cover. This 13-year-old sees this strong, I was laughing. He's so handsome and strong. So she sees this pair of brothers moving in, and she likes the older one instantly, but he gives her the cold shoulder over and over again. So finally, she turns to the younger brother, and he's very accepting of her the entire time throughout the entire comic. But as he grows older, he starts taking her for granted. And he starts looking at other girls, and finally, she realizes that that's not the boy for her, and that's when the older brother says, yeah, he was just using you. And you only liked him because I ignored you. And so she falls back in love with the snobby guy who actually does love her in his own snobby way. Learn to play guitar the Chet Atkins way. Now, I don't know if my description of this comic did it real justice, but I don't read that many romance comics, and that might be why I really liked this comic. It seemed interesting, fresh, silly, ridiculous. The art was fun. It was all over the place. I just had a blast with this comic. And if you don't read many romance comics, you might want to pick this up because it was a lot of fun. I'm really sad because that is going to be moldering away, not literally, but that should be on full display rather than this. I actually feel like folding the cover back and displaying this as the cover art. Wow. The fourth comic is Rat City #1. Now, I was a little confused because this totally looks like a Spawn comic. I'm not that into Spawn. I sometimes buy them for the cover, but I was intrigued because I liked the cover art on this. So I bought it and I did enjoy it. It's very frenetic. It's in the future, and it starts with these mercenaries who go in and they just kill everybody, and then they have an accident and most of them die, but 2 of them, like, their legs get blown off and they're put into a research facility that is making soldiers with bionic parts. Yeah, the art is very frenetic, but it matches the story. So, I mean, you can see there's like panels everywhere and panels overlaying the art. Unfortunately, he can't keep up with what is required of them, and so they release him with no or further help. They're like, thank you for your service. We'll be seeing you. And then there's some kind of necroplasmic detonation, which I think must have happened in another Spawn comic. And it's kind of like reverberating in this universe, I think. And that sets a chain of events in motion, which is going to, that was actually pretty cool, which is going to lead him to becoming a new type of Spawn. So his biotech is going crazy, and at the very end, he has an image of Spawn. Bonus feature in this, there are some black and white art pages, which which are really nice. Now, although I enjoyed this, I think this is for a much younger crowd. Maybe I would not buy number 2. Not because it's a bad comic, it's just not my type of thing. But I could see, younger people enjoying this for its frenetic nature. Especially if you like Spawn or action movies, you would probably really like this. The last comic is Detective Comics number 411. And I thought I might like this the most. I didn't. Now, it's got a pretty cool cover. Batman is looking down on some warriors. Maybe they're about to kill a woman or they're protecting her. Not sure. And then this guy's getting ready to slice Batman as he's looking. I think this comic is important because it's the first appearance of Talia al Ghul. So Ra's al Ghul's daughter. The first image was Batman on top of the Statue of Liberty, and I was thinking to myself, how the heck did he get up there? Like, you've got to take a ferry over there and then climb all the way up. And so he's walking around on the top of it, and he's meeting someone on the inside. How did that guy get there in the middle of the night to meet them? But then he's informing on whatever Ra's al Ghul's clan is called. What are they called? Oh, the League of Assassins. And so they kill the guy and fight Batman, but Batman gets a little bit of information from the guy before he's dead. That sets him on a train. He's in disguise, and I guess this is Dr. Dark. Now, I watched that League show on the CW, and I remember there was a Damien Dark. So I'm wondering if this is the same villain. Damien, or Dr. Dark, jumps off the plane, and Batman gets rid of his disguise. Now, this makes no sense. How did he have all of that on under that disguise? I'm going to go back and show it to you. Pretty hilarious. That's Batman in disguise. I was laughing. So he throws off the disguise and jumps after them. And, it's Batman gets beaten to the point where he's unconscious, but Dr. Dark doesn't want to kill him. He wants him alive because he's a good foe, and he doesn't want his foe to go out like that. Batman meets Talia al Ghul in this cage, and then she is put into an arena with a bull, and she's tied up, and Batman has to make a choice. You're either going to run away and save yourself, or you're going to protect Talia al Ghul from the bull and possibly be killed. I think it's enough for this comic, so if you want to find out how it turns out, go ahead and read it. I'm going to say that I didn't particularly like this. It wasn't that great. It has like this wild ending, which I'm not going to spoil. But then, which I'm going to have to cover up, then we have a backup story with Batgirl in Cut and Run. Now, this was totally hilarious because Batgirl is after a bunch of people who want to kill a woman because if she makes the wrong fashion choice, it's going to ruin their career. So this was all about fashion. And so the poor woman is in a wheelchair because she broke her leg. I think all this happened in the previous issue. And so Batgirl is strapped to a table where she's going to be sawn in half. It's very much like the TV show. They leave her, of course, just to, be killed and sliced up on her own. But she comes up with a clever way to get out of it. I'm not going to spoil it. And then she goes after the crooks on her bat moped. And this is hilarious. They take this poor woman on the yacht and they throw her overboard. This poor woman in a wheelchair. They don't just stab her on the spot. They just throw her overboard with her cast. Here she is falling with her cast. This has got to be the most hilarious thing. At the very end, Batgirl saves her, of course. And so the reason I'm telling you the ending is because the woman designs an outfit based on Batgirl's costume, which is going to be used on the runway. So hilarious. That backup story was better than the original just because it was so silly. There we have Detective Comics presents Batman and Batgirl. Of these 5 comics, I'm going to have to say the facsimiles went out. Young Romance was the best for me. Next, we have the introduction of Sergeant Rock with Our Army at War. And then I'm going to just say these 3 were equally okay. I'll give a nod to the 2 modern comics. Red Sonja was good. Rat City was good. And Detective Comics was good. So there you have it. Take these reviews with a grain of salt. If you liked anything about these comics, maybe the art or the story, then you might want to pick them up. They're all readily available at your local comic shops. Just because I didn't particularly love these comics doesn't mean that you won't. Let me know what you think in the comments about any of these. Have you picked any of them up? Do you plan to? Are you more on the side of facsimiles? Did I just say moron? Or modern comics? Again, 5 comics taking way longer to go over than they should. I would like to thank all of you out there for the support.